Start. Okay, so hello, dear friends. Hello, Richard. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Tatiana. Greetings to
Wonderful.
all our viewers.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, today we'll talk about tips on how to save money while traveling in London. So, we're ready to know because spring and summer are coming soon. So, it's time to get ready with our true expert, Richard. So, Richard, we are ready. How can we save money while traveling in London?
Well, the best thing to save money traveling to England and arriving in London is to plan in advance. Because if you buy things at the time or when you arrive, they are likely to be more expensive than if you planned beforehand and got your tickets or you worked out the best way to travel around and to do everything you want to do inside London in advance. So, for instance, you will likely arrive at an airport for London, but there is not just one London airport. There are many London airports. Only two of them are actually in London. The rest of them are at varying distances outside. So, if you know which airport you will arrive at when you come to London, then there are different ways to travel into London to get to wherever your accommodation is or wherever you need to get to when you first arrive. The main ones are by bus or coach, which are essentially the same thing. Then you have trains, and then you have taxis. Taxis are the most expensive, and if you're a long way from London, it will cost you a very much a lot of money. Trains, if you buy in advance, can be cheap, but coaches are the cheapest way to travel in London, uh, particularly from certain airports like Gatwick and Heathrow and Luton. But yeah, so first of all, know where you're arriving and how you will get to wherever you need to get to. Do it at least 3 or 4 weeks before you come, and you will probably get the cheapest deal that you can to get you to where you need to go. And also, you won't worry too much because you'll know where you need to go to catch the bus or the train, and you'll know that you already have the ticket. So you won't be panicking or getting worried that you have the wrong ticket or you are going to get lost traveling to where you need to get to.
Very good. Do I need to take my umbrella with you, or can I buy it? Can I buy it while I'm over there?
Well, you obviously, with the amount of rain that we have in England, there are always places you can buy umbrellas. But if you can bring one with you, particularly if it's a nice small one that you can carry easily in your pocket or your hand luggage, then you'll be prepared for all the weather that you're going to encounter when you come to England.
So the most important thing, or the most important tool that I have to take with me is my umbrella, right?
It is. And also know that when you come, it might be hot or it might be cold, it might be wet, it might be dry. So make sure you have some idea of what the weather's going to be during your stay and have the appropriate clothing with you. So always have a waterproof jacket or something that you can put on over the top of whatever else you're wearing, but be prepared to have a very much a change of weather during the day because the day can start off wet, then it can go very hot, then it can go wet again. So you always have to be prepared for any season on any day.
hmm I see. Richard, and as far as we're talking about traveling, so could you please mention what are the best seasons actually to visit England?
Well, it really depends on what you want to do while you're here. If most of the things you want to do are inside, like museums and historic buildings, then you don't need to worry too much about the season because all those places are going to be cozy for you to visit while you're inside. But if you're planning on doing a lot of walking around outside, seeing buildings and parks and other places, then you don't want it to be too cold and wet, which is the winter. You maybe don't want it to be too hot, which is the summer, especially August. So the best times to come are really in between. So spring or autumn, you will probably have a range of weather that will be suitable. So each day you can decide whether you're going to do some inside things because the weather is not looking very nice, or some outside things because the weather is looking very nice.
I see, I see. And you've mentioned museums. So when I'm in England or in London, are museums and galleries for free? Can I visit them for free, or do I need to pay and buy super expensive tickets?
Well, you'll be pleased to know that most museums and galleries are free to visit. They do ask for a donation. So if you'd like to help the poor British government, you can drop some money in the box. But if you're a poor person coming from a part of the world that the British Empire took lots of things back to the museums, then you might think that you've already paid in advance. So no, you don't have to pay for most things. So it's a very cheap way of seeing some very interesting places and not spending too much money.
I see, I see. And regarding accommodation, so I bought my ticket 4 weeks in advance. I took a train or a bus to get from the airport to the place where I would like to stay. And so now tell me please about accommodation, how to save money on accommodation.
Well, the best thing about accommodation is there is a lot of choices. The closer to the center of London is probably more expensive. So you have a balance. How far do you stay away from the center and maybe get some cheap accommodation? But also then I have to either pay for a bus or underground tube subway to get into the center. But obviously, the most important thing is to have a friend that lives in London that can accommodate you. And then you can stay there for free and also have a free tour guide who knows the city.
Oh, that is the first and the most important tip we have to start with.
So,
Do
so
you
your
have a
plan
friend?
should be to make sure that you either send somebody to live in London first and then
Mhm,
you go and visit them, or
mhm,
you ask around your friends to find someone that knows someone that lives in London. Because there's
mhm.
so many people in London, you almost certainly know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who lives in London. So
I see, I see. So if it's not a private information, could you please tell me, do you have any friends in London?
unfortunately, I don't. So I'm afraid I can't help you. I never stay in London. I only ever visit.
And how far from London you are?
Well, by bus or train, I'm about 2 hours from London. So it's
So
very
not too
easy
bad.
for me to
Mhm.
buy a cheap ticket, go to London, see a museum, see a show at the theatre, walk around the parks, see some historical buildings, and then go and catch my cheap bus or train back to my house where
Mhm.
I can stay for nothing.
I see, I see. And the trains, I mean, can you catch a train at night, or they have like a schedule and after midnight you
Well,
cannot travel?
it depends where you're traveling to. The trains do run for most of the night. They run until they finish. The main ones finish after midnight and begin very early in the morning. It really depends where you're going to. The tube, the subway does run most of the day. The buses run most of the day and night, but obviously after the main hours, then they are not so frequent. So you might have to wait or you might have to delay your plans if you need to get to somewhere and you have to wait 2 or 3 hours for the next bus or the train.
I see, I see. Okay, so we know information about airport, about where to stay, actually where to find a friend who has a friend. We also
Yes.
know some information about free museums and galleries. So basically we can, if it rains, we can get over there. So what about food? So if we get hungry after all these mini trips, where do we go to get some food?
Well, there are a wide range of restaurants and food outlets inside London. There is probably a restaurant from every country in the world in London somewhere. So if you have a particular need for a particular type of food, you will find it. You'll have to do your research to find out where to get to the restaurant, but you can be assured that you will find somewhere that will do the food that you want. Now, being a large city, most of the nice restaurants are very expensive. There are cheaper restaurants, and sometimes in the tourist areas, you will find restaurants doing special deals for lunch or for dinner. Uh, there are the usual fast food restaurants like McDonald's and
Mm-hmm.
Subway and these type of places.
I
But the
see.
cheapest place to buy food is to go to a cheap supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a kitchen where you are staying, you can buy food at the supermarket, take it home and cook it. It will be much cheaper than eating in a restaurant. But
Mm-hmm.
also, you can make yourself food that you can take with you. And then during the course of the day, you can find a nice place to sit and eat your food, like a park or
Mm-hmm.
a square. And even in some of the places, like the museums and the art galleries, there will be somewhere you can sit comfortably and eat your own food, or buy food that
Nice.
they sell in the restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
in the art gallery or the museum.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And I've heard that there are special deals for a show. So sometimes you can get a ticket for a show and get a special deal for a meal. So could you please tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Uh, the best way to get a cheap ticket for a show is to try and find a show and book a ticket in advance. There are some ticket booths near the theatres that will sell tickets on the day, so you can go and join the queue and see if there is a show that they have a ticket for that is cheaper than the original price. But if you are booking a ticket in advance, not only can you buy a ticket for a theatre show cheaper in advance, but sometimes, depending on the website, you will find that they will do a special deal where you can get a ticket for a meal before the show or after the show and a ticket for the show. So the combined price will be much cheaper than paying separately for the meal and separately for the theatre ticket.
I see. Well, that's wonderful. So you just buy a ticket to go for a show, eat, and you are happy and healthy. And you can continue your trip. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. Oh, basically, I wanted to ask you. So you've mentioned this ticket booths where you can buy a ticket show. So can we experience a culture of, standing in a queue and talking to different people while waiting for our ticket, or how does it work? Mm-hmm.
Yes, you will almost certainly have to stand in a queue and you can meet your fellow theatre lovers and talk about shows that you want to see or get recommendations on a show that they have seen. So it's a good way to meet people because you are likely to be standing in that queue for some time. The queues for the day tickets are often very long. So you have to be patient and enjoy the queuing.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see. Okay, wonderful. So now we know the tips how to travel from the airport, where to find accommodation, where to buy our food, where to buy our tickets to go to see a beautiful theater in England. Know some information about transport as far and also some deals for a show and for a meal. Is there is anything else that is left and we need to know before going to London and exploring it?
Well, one thing about London, it's fairly flat in the centre, so it's good for walking, which is why I always recommend that people have an umbrella because you can see everything in the centre mostly. Uh, And if you've got an umbrella, you will not be deterred by the weather. If it's raining, if you've got an umbrella, you'll be fine. But the other thing is, because the cities in London are not like American cities that are normally designed on a grid system, so it's very much in blocks and straight avenues and streets. In England, most of the cities developed from the very distant past, so the roads do not always run very straight and they're not always very logical. So it's very easy to get lost, especially in a big city. Now, one thing that I have found when traveling abroad is that a lot of people are very cautious around police officers and people in uniform because they get worried about what the person might say or do because maybe they are doing something wrong. But unless you are definitely doing something wrong, if you are lost or you need some information to help you, you can always see a police officer or someone else in uniform in the City of London. And don't be afraid to go and ask them for help. They will not be carrying guns and they will not be trying to throw you in prison. They are there to try and hopefully keep you safe. And they will definitely, unless you are very unlucky, they will be able to help you with some advice on where you need to go. And if you have a problem, they will give you some advice on how to solve that problem. They are very used to tourists in London, so they are normally very open to giving a good advice for tourists.
Mhm. I see. Wonderful. So now we know if we're in trouble or if we don't have a friend who has a friend in London where we would like to stay, the next person to ask is a police officer, right?
Yes, yeah. I don't guarantee they're going to offer you some free accommodation, but they will be able to tell you where there is some place that you can stay.
I see, I see. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard, for such useful tips. It was my great pleasure to talk to you again and to learn about England and about London more. So thank you so much for your useful tips. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're very welcome.